Hey, this is Steve Hofstetter. I've been a professional comedian for 17 years. I first started doing improv when I was 13 years old, which is 26 years ago. I'm currently doing a national tour of Australia and then also New Zealand, which is Australia's Canada. And it's been a ton of fun. I'm here at the Sit Down Comedy Club in Brisbane, and I just had what has been my favorite show in Australia so far. I got into comedy because I had no other marketable job skills. I had a mouth that would not let me keep a job. I was fired from 7 jobs before I became a comedian. I became a comedian 2 months out of college. So most people can't get 7 jobs in 2 months. I can lose 7 jobs in 2 months. Technically, I started improv at 13. So before I started doing that, I was being alone, usually alone. The best part about being a comedian is the fact that I am all the way across the world from where I live, and I'm being paid to do it, which is crazy. Tomorrow night I'm throwing out the first pitch for the Brisbane Bandits, and that's like part of my job. That's nuts. Last time I was in Australia, I was in Sydney one day, and I woke up and I decided to walk to the Opera House, and I could just do that, and that's really cool. And by the way, I've done it. I've traveled the world. And I've been to countries where I don't speak the language, and I've managed to, get around with absolutely no help from anyone except the supercomputer that I have in my pocket at all times. My first ever gig was at a little bar called the Underground Lounge, about 6-7 blocks from my college campus. And I was passing out flyers in order to get time on stage. That's how I started. I started as a flyer guy. And where you just be like, come see some comedy? No, you hate me? Okay, I'll move on. And that's really tough to do that right near where you went to college, because there were people I was still in college with, or who I had been in college with, who were still there, including a girl I had a huge crush on. And she walked by, saw me handing out flyers. She's like, I heard you were doing comedy. And I was like, oh, we all pitch in. We take turns. It helps the show. And that was a bad time for my boss to come out and tell me to work harder. The third time I ever did stand-up. So the first time I did stand-up, I had prepared a ton, and I had a bunch of friends in the crowd, so I did well. The second time I did stand-up, I had a couple jokes not work, but then I riffed on how they weren't working, and that got a laugh. So I literally said the words out loud, I guess I can't bomb, and the universe heard me, and the universe smote me. And the third show I ever did, I bombed so hard that I got off stage less than a minute into my set. Do you know how bad you have to be to 50 seconds in to just be like, there's no way for this to work. I'm going. And I just left. And a friend of mine was at that show, still hasn't seen me live since then, and it kills me every day. That is what I think about when I go to sleep. My favorite comedian of all time is Bill Hicks. And if you do not know who that is, you can pause this right now. Go Google him, watch him, come back later and tell me how awesome he is. Obviously this interview, but the second highlight of my career, there have been a lot of really fun things that I've gotten to do, but there was a moment. So Natasha Henstridge, if you're unfamiliar, was the lead in the movie Species, and she's gorgeous and was topless in a lot of the movie. And I was a 14-year-old boy when I saw that, and it was wonderful. So, cut to many years later, I'm performing at the Improv, and Natasha was dating a comedian. And so she's at the club, and she watches the show, and I get introduced to her afterward. And I say, I try to be cool about it, and I just say, hey, I gotta confess, I'm a bit of a fan. And she goes, me too, nice set, which was incredible. And it took everything I had to not say nice set right back to her. During my career, comedy has become democratized because with YouTube and with, Facebook video now and just social media in general, what the people want is what gets pushed to the top. Now, sometimes the people want garbage, and a lot of people begrudge that. A lot of people are like, oh, I hate it because these guys who aren't really stand-ups, they get big on social media, and then they go on stage and then they bomb for an hour. I don't care, because that won't last. Those guys will be out of the game, and it's fine. So they take a weekend at a club, big deal. It'll sort itself out. What's amazing now is that we don't need to rely on out-of-touch gatekeepers anymore. No one can say no to you. No one can stop you. There is no one who has enough power in this business to stop you. Comedy is completely democratic now. The cliche advice for someone starting out in comedy is quit. I would say it's not terrible advice. If you can picture yourself doing anything other than comedy, go do that thing. You should only do comedy if it really is what you burn to do every day. My advice also is read about it. There's a blog I've contributed to a ton. It's called Comedy Hints. So comedyhints.com. Read everything on there. And then Google other things and read those too. And realize that every piece of advice you ever get is probably wrong, because Doug Stanhope said it really well once. He said, anyone who's telling you how to do comedy is just telling you how to do comedy like them. Just how to be more like them. Go find your own way. Someone asked me just today, someone emailed me, and they were like, I'm thinking of starting, how did you get your start? And I replied and I said, oh, do you want to be a comedian in 2003? Because that's what my start is relevant to. It's not relevant to how you would start now. It's completely different now. So, just go do it. There's no substitute for stage time. Get on stage as much as possible to a degree. And here's where the advice kicks in. You need to have enough time to live. There's this ethos right now where people are like, oh, I did 30 open mics this week. I'm like, okay, when did you have time to write a joke? When did you have time to live to write a joke about that experience? So get on stage as much as you can to a degree, and also make sure to live your life. I have a show in Perth. After that, I believe, is Adelaide, then Melbourne, Auckland. But what's next for me is more of the same, ever forward, bigger, better, doing as much as I can. I have a television show in development. I have a movie role coming up. The best stuff is always stuff you can't talk about yet. I'll continue to put content out on YouTube and Facebook and continue to see it grow. And, I'm excited to find out what's next for me. Brisbane, this was so much fun. This legit has been my favorite show I've done in Australia so far. I believe I've done like 9 headliner shows and then another couple guest spots, and a lot of them have been really wonderful. But tonight was just on fire from start to finish. It was just so much fun. Thank you for having me. If you want to check out more of my stuff, you can check out my YouTube or my Facebook or my Twitter or my Instagram, all that stuff. It's pretty much all just at Steve Hofstetter. If you put Steve Hofstetter into Google, spell it wrong. Google will correct you. They know what's up. And tell me that you saw me on Sit Down Comedy Club, and I will say thanks.